We've all heard that saying before, right? That happier people live longer. And it sounds great. The idea that just being cheerful could literally add years to your life. But, it kind of makes you wonder, what kind of happiness are we really talking about? Is it that quick hit of joy from a good meal? Or is it something, I don't know, a little deeper, a little more meaningful?
Okay, let's really get into this because this question hits at the very core of how we decide to live. For years, scientists have been trying to figure out the connection between our minds and our bodies. And what they're starting to realize is that maybe, just maybe, not all happiness is created equal, especially when it comes to living a long life.
So you've basically got two main players in this game. On one side, you have feeling good, what researchers call life satisfaction. This is the classic happiness, right? Feeling content, pretty pleased with how things are. But on the other side, you've got doing good, which is all about having a purpose in life. That feeling that your life has meaning, that you're working towards something that actually matters. So the big question is, which one packs a bigger punch for longevity?
So here's the game plan. We're going to dig into the science. First, we'll nail down what these terms really mean. Then we're going to look at this huge 20-year study that put these two ideas head-to-head. We'll find out who the surprising winner was, and then, and this is the best part, we'll explore a really cool mindset shift that'll help you use all this in your own life.
All right, let's start with the happiness question. Before we can declare a winner, we need to be absolutely crystal clear on what we're even talking about. Because in science, you can't just throw words like happiness around, you've got to define them. So first up is something called subjective well-being, or SWB. You can think of this as hedonic well-being. It's all about pleasure, feeling good, being satisfied. It's you stepping back and asking, all things considered, how do I feel about my life right now? And that's super important for sure, but as we're about to see, it might only be half the story.
And then you've got its counterpart, eudaimonic well-being, or EWB. If that first one is about feeling good, this one is all about functioning well. This idea actually goes way back to the ancient Greeks. It's about living a life that has meaning and purpose. It's the engine that drives you, that feeling that you're growing and that what you do actually matters.
So there you have it, our two competitors, feeling good versus functioning well. For a long time, scientists knew that both of these things were good for your health, but nobody had ever really put them in the ring together, to see which one was the true heavyweight champion of living longer. That is, until one really fascinating study did exactly that.
So the research we're about to break down comes from a 2021 thesis out of the University of Helsinki. And the mission was simple, but honestly, pretty profound. Let's directly compare life satisfaction and purpose in life to see which one is better at predicting who lives and who dies over a long, long time. This isn't pop psychology. This is serious academic stuff. And what makes this study so powerful is just the sheer scale of it. They didn't just ask a handful of people. Nope. They used data from a massive survey that followed nearly 3,500 American adults. When you have a sample size that big, you can be a lot more confident that what you're seeing is the real deal.
And this wasn't just a quick check-in. This was a longitudinal study. That means they measured everyone's well-being at the start, and then they tracked them for almost 2 decades to see what happened. That kind of long-term view is the absolute gold standard in this kind of research, because it lets you see how things from the past can predict the future. So how'd they do it? Well, it was pretty straightforward, really. First, they got a baseline for everyone's life satisfaction and their sense of purpose. Then, for the next 20 years, they just kept track of who passed away. And finally, they used this really smart statistical tool to analyze all the data. You can almost think of it like a survival race. They wanted to see which starting quality, satisfaction or purpose, gave people a bigger head start.
Okay, this is it. The moment of truth. We've got our two contenders, we've got our massive study, and we've got our 20-year timeline. So, what did the data actually say? Which part of our well-being is the real key to a longer life?
So at first, the results were kind of what you'd expect. When you looked at each factor all by itself, they both looked pretty good. People with higher life satisfaction, yep, they tended to live longer. And people with a strong sense of purpose, same thing. They also tended to live longer. So far, no big surprises. Both seem to be good for you.
But here is where it gets so interesting. The real question wasn't just, do they both work on their own? The question was, what happens when you put them both in the equation at the same time? Is one of them actually doing all the heavy lifting and the other one's just kind of along for the ride? Is there a deeper, more fundamental force at work?
And when the researchers did that,
when they put both life satisfaction and purpose into the same model, something incredible happened. The power of life satisfaction to predict a longer life, it just vanished. It completely disappeared. It was no longer a significant factor at all. Meanwhile, purpose in life, it was still standing strong, a powerful predictor. So what this tells us is pretty mind-blowing. It seems like the main reason satisfied people live longer is because they also happen to have a sense of purpose. Purpose is the real MVP here.
I mean, listen to how the study's author puts it so clearly. The effect of life satisfaction basically flows through purpose. It suggests that, yeah, feeling good is nice, but it's that sense of meaning, that feeling that you're part of something bigger than you, that's really tied to the deep-down mechanisms that keep us healthy and help us live longer.
Okay, so this is huge, right? The science is pretty clear. For a longer life, purpose beats pleasure. But that's the what. What about the how? Like, how do you actually get more purpose in your life? Well, for a really practical way to think about this, we can turn to the author James Clear, who makes this brilliant distinction between goals and systems. Let's break this down. A goal is the result you want, right? Like winning the big game. A system, that's the process that gets you those results, like how you show up in practice every single day. Now, just look at how perfectly this lines up with what we just found. Chasing a goal is a lot like chasing life satisfaction. It's all about that one moment of victory, that outcome where you can finally say, okay, now I'm happy. But focusing on your system, that's like building a life of purpose. It's about falling in love with the daily process itself.
You know, the legendary football coach Bill Walsh totally understood this. He knew that if his players just spent the whole game staring at the scoreboard, the goal, they'd lose. The only way to win was to execute the system, to focus on the process, play after play. He had this famous saying, if you get the process right, the score takes care of itself. Well, in life, happiness is the scoreboard. Purpose is your playbook. You got to focus on the playbook.
And Clear points out some huge problems with only focusing on goals, and they perfectly match the problems with only chasing satisfaction. First, winners and losers usually have the exact same goal, so that can't be what makes the difference. Second, hitting a goal is just a temporary change. Yeah, your room is clean, but if your system is messy, it's going to be messy again in a week. Third, goals totally restrict your happiness. You tell yourself, I'll be happy when I get there, which is a terrible way to live. And finally, once you reach the goal, what happens? Your motivation often just disappears. A system, on the other hand, a purpose that's designed to keep you going.
So, where does all this leave us? We've got the hard science, we've got a really powerful way to think about it, and that brings us to the final idea here, walking the purpose-driven path. This is all about committing to the process. And this isn't just some nice, feel-good idea. It's about fundamentally changing what we're aiming for, moving away from a destination and learning to love the journey. So here's the bottom line, the big takeaway. The search for a longer, healthier life might mean we need to change the question we're asking. Instead of what's going to make me happy, maybe we should be asking, what is a meaningful process I can commit to every day? It's not about finally reaching some state of perfect contentment. It's about building a system of actions that matter to you, practicing your craft, being a good parent, helping your community. Happiness, then, just becomes this wonderful side effect of a meaningful life. It's not the goal itself. And that really just leaves us with one final question for you. The science suggests that your commitment to your process is what's going to determine your progress, not just in your job, but in your health, in your longevity. It's not about winning the game. It's about finding a game that's so meaningful, so important to you, that you just want to keep playing it every single day. The score will take care of itself. So, what's your playbook? What system are you committed to playing?